The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Josh Hernandez, and today we are going to take a look at creating custom map overlays for sub areas in your MLS. Before we begin, we are using GoToWebinar, so if you have questions, feel free to use that GoToWebinar question panel. Just click on it, it'll expand open, and you can type your questions in. I will be looking at those questions and I will probably pause throughout today's presentation just to see if there are questions and any that I can answer on screen for you. I'll also take a look at the end of the presentation to see if I can circle back and answer any of those questions. Now, if you have a bad connection or you need to leave for any reason, this is being recorded and we'll send you that recording automatically. With that, let's go ahead and take a look at the topics we'll be discussing today. Very first one we'll cover is why are we having this class on creating map overlays for important subareas? And then we'll go into how do you draw and save a custom overlay? And once you've created those overlays, what are the best practices for using those overlays in your searches? So we'll cover several examples once we get to that third part at the bottom. And if you miss anything or need to go back and review anything, remember this is being recorded, so you can always wait for that recording. It should come out a little bit later this afternoon, and you can replay it, pause it, and practice it yourself. Now, I am going to leave this full screen mode and go on to our next slide. Why is it important and why am I showing you how to do this today? So on May 22nd of this year, the sub area field is going to be removed from FlexMLS. So when you go to a quick search, you won't see that sub area field. When you go and you're adding a listing or changing and editing a listing, you will not see that sub area field. And when you go in and create your hot sheets and run hot sheets, there's currently a filter there for sub area, but you will not see that. It will not be available. It is just being removed from the FlexMLS system. So I'm going to show you how to use map overlays and recreate those important sub areas as a map overlay that you can use for your searches, searches for your clients, searches for hot sheets, and even some statistical reports that you'll be able to use with those shapes that you draw. So, and just so I'm clear that this is being removed, where does that get removed from? And I mentioned the search, the add change. When I go to a search, I'm in FlexMLS right now, and I'm doing a regular residential search, for example. Right now, I can go down on my search template, find sub area, and I can start typing in what I'm looking for. So maybe I'm looking for N10 in Grand Haven, and I can use that in the search. This will no longer exist after May 22nd. So you've got a lot of time to get these set up, and we're going to replace, instead of using a field, we're going to replace this with a map shape that we draw. So let's get into that. And the very first thing we'll do is how do you go in and create a sub area overlay? And so we'll look at where we'll go. We'll go to My Map Overlays. I'll show that in FlexMLS. We'll create an overlay folder, and I'll just probably call it My Sub Areas. And you can include multiple shapes in your sub area. So you're not just interested or limited to putting in one or two. You can create as many as you would like. So I'll show you how to do that. And the third thing I mentioned here is you can actually share these overlays with other members in your office. So if somebody in the office has done this, they can share that with you. So I'm going to come out here and let's go into FlexMLS. And so this can be done from a quick search screen, But because I want to create multiple shapes in an overlay folder, I'm going to kind of do this the long way, but in the end, I think it's easier to do when you're thinking of creating multiple sub areas that you want to use. So what I'm going to do is go to my menu, and you can type in the search bar at the top. You can type in the word overlay, or you can type in the word map, and it's just going to bring up those options with map in here. And what I want to do is go to this one under preferences called My Map Overlays. And I will click on this, and you'll see I don't currently have any overlays created in this training account. So you may already have some overlays created, so you wouldn't get this pop up. But if this is your first time here, this is what it will look like. And you can just click on Let's Begin, where my mouse is hovering. I'll click that. And so now I can start drawing. And the big question people usually have is, well, I'm not sure where I want to draw. I want to draw maybe K6 in Kalamazoo as one of my overlays that I use frequently. So up at the top, there is an overlay option right here. Now, these aren't searchable, but if I click on MLS areas, it's going to overlay that here. So now I see all of those areas that are, sub areas that are currently available. And I wanted to do for this example K6. And we'll do a few in this example. But I'm just using my mouse right now. I'm zooming in with my mouse. I'm using the scroll wheel. That's why you see the screen zooming in. And my map tools are over on the right-hand side where my mouse is now hovering. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw. And I'm just going to trace this K6 area, and then I'll save it as K6 in this overlay folder. So I'll click on this. It's the draw tool. It's just a free-form polygon. This is different than drawing on a quick search. There's no option for like a circle or a rectangle. It's only free-form polygons available when I come here. And so I will click to set a point, and every time I want to set a point, I just make another click, and it just draws a line between every point I set with those clicks. Now I'm going to do this, and you'll see maybe it's not quite perfect, and that's okay. I'll show you we can even go in and edit this shape to get it perfect. But I'm just doing this kind of fast for today's example. You'd probably want to spend a little bit more time than I'm currently doing drawing this, just so you have it exactly where you want it. And once I'm done drawing, you'll see it still follow me around. Just make sure it's not crossed over. The lines don't cross over themselves. Set that final point and double click. And then when I am here, I am going to click on that overlay, and you'll see it's just called polygon. I want to change that, so I'll click on edit. So what I did, I'll click close first, is I just clicked, after I closed that off, I clicked right in the center or anywhere in that overlay, and then I get this little pop-up. And so I'll click edit because I don't want it to be called polygon. I want this to be called, we'll call it K-6. And you can even change the color. Maybe I'll make this purple. And then I'll click on close. So I've drawn one shape. Maybe I want to also include K9 because I use that one frequently in my searches as well. Now, obviously, I don't have to do this for every single sub area that exists, but the ones that I use frequently and that are important for me and for my clients. So I'm just going to drag the map over a little bit, and I'll draw K9 as well in this example. So I'm going to just draw. Again, I just click on that drawing tool, and then I click to set the points. And again, I'm doing this a little bit haphazardly. I'm going to go and show you right after this how you can go in and edit this to make sure those boundaries are exactly where you want them to be. So first I'll just finish drawing this one. And again, double click to close that shape. Now you'll see it over here as I hover over this, there's K6. I've named it K6. This one's still called Polygon. So click on it again, click on Edit, and then we'll click on K9. And I could make this one a different color if I'd like. This one was purple. Maybe I will make this one, let's go with blue. And then I can just click on Close. So now you'll see I've got K6 and K9. Now I'm just doing that with a couple examples today to show you what I'm doing, but you could come in here over the next week and just add one or two a day, and then you can have probably a large collection of them, all the ones that are important for you and your job and your clients. You can have that done within a couple of weeks with just a few minutes of work every day. So I'll start with these two, and I'm going to take this overlay off. I'm just going to go back to my overlays just so we can see what that looks like. Now, I did mention that I want to show you how I can go in and edit these, since these are kind of overlapping each other a little bit the way I did that. I'm going to put my overlay back on. And I kind of want to tighten this up because I didn't draw great lines here. So in order to edit one of these overlays, I can just click on the overlay and click on Edit. And before we gave it a name and chose a color, but there's also an Edit Shape option. And so from here, now you'll see I've got all of these little orange dots, and I can just drag those to adjust that shape that I've drawn. And as I get this, now I'm only editing one shape at a time. So once I've completed editing one of my shapes, I need to leave this edit shape mode. And when I want to leave that, you'll notice I can't double click or anything, but to get rid of this edit shape mode, it's in the lower right of the screen and it says leave edit shape mode. So I will click on leave edit shape mode, and now I'm no longer editing that shape. And you can see where I kind of straightened up that edge here, and I could go in and do that for the entire shape. You can zoom in and zoom out as you're doing it, so you can get in as close as you need to be to make sure that I'm getting this exactly where I want it. Because of course, the boundary of that shape, if something is mapped within that boundary, it'll be included in the search when we go to do that in just a few minutes. And if it's not included within that boundary, it gets excluded. So I want this to be as accurate as I can get that when I actually draw these. And now I've got shapes K9 and K6 drawn. I'm going to stop the example here, and I'll just click on Save, just to show you what it looks like to save this. So I'll click on Save. If you've got an existing overlay out there, you could add it to the existing. You saw me come to this screen. I haven't been here before in my training account. So I'm going to call this Custom Sub Areas. Now, you don't need to call it custom sub areas. You can just call it sub areas. I'm doing that so we can easily identify it when I go out and I start using this, so we can tell this is the overlay that I've created. And I'm going to click on Save. So now you'll see I get some pop-up help. Now that I've got a shape, I can manage it in the list here. Click on the shape in the list to change the label and color. That just tells me if I click here, it zooms in, I can go into that edit mode. Now, with my shapes over on the left-hand side, there is also an options and permissions option. So you'll see the shapes here. And this just says, if you use FlexMLS IDX, or if your clients use the FlexMLS portal, can they use the shapes that you've drawn when they're running searches on your IDX website if you use FlexMLS IDX? Or if they're using your FlexMLS portal, can people see those shapes and run those shapes on searches in the portal? So if these are important for me and my clients, make sure you click on this. Now, if somebody is in my portal, or if I'm using FlexMLS IDX and they're on my IDX site and they're starting a search, they can use those shapes in their searches. So just wanted to point that out here. is we have shapes at the top, but don't forget right at the bottom on the right-hand side, check that if you want that to be a publicly used in your portal or FlexMLS IDX website. And then I'll just click on save since I changed some things right there. I'll just click save. Now it says this is existing. I've made some minor changes over here to the options and permissions. So I'll just resave that custom sub areas. And now I can begin using these in my searches. Uh, and so I see a few questions here. So before I move on, I'm going to take a quick look before we leave this screen. And one of the questions I see is when you're drawing a shape, you're drawing one of these polygons, is there a maximum number of points? And I will tell you no. Theoretically, there could be, I suppose, but nothing that anybody drawing a polygon is going to hit. So you can draw and set as many points as you'd like when you're drawing it or when you're editing it. You don't have to worry like you can only have 10 clicks when you're drawing or something like that. That's not the case. If you have hundreds of clicks as you're getting in and being really meticulous while drawing, that will be fine. Um, let's see. There was somebody who said when they went in to edit a shape, the map moved instead of the shape itself. I'm just going to click on that and I'll click on edit shape. And so if I'm clicking not on one of the orange dots, you'll see I'm clicking and holding. I'm just dragging the map around. I have to click and hold on an orange dot to go in and edit that shape. Also, you will see an orange dot in the center of the shapes. And that allows me to drag the entire shape around if I click and hold on that orange dot. Now, I don't really want to do that because I was tracing a specific area, so I'll put that back. And now there's a question out there of how does this affect our current contacts out there or our current saved searches that might be tied to a subscription? Since I'll come back over here, the sub area field is being removed from FlexMLS. Since that's being removed, those existing saved searches are basically not going to be pointing to a sub area anymore since that sub area field is being removed. So you would want to go in and identify those searches that are important, that are looking at specific sub areas, and you can update those existing saved searches so they're looking at a map overlay rather than the field. And I'll show you how to do that in today's examples when we get into our next section here. So we'll talk about that, editing an existing saved search to point towards an overlay rather than using that field that's for sub areas. And I did see somebody out here saying they're newer to the MLS and they were wondering about the importance of sub areas. So currently, the MichRIC in all the associations has areas and sub areas. And the sub areas are generally, I'm just going to put this overlay back on. Those have generally been created some time ago. And they're kind of important places to denote where how the market breaks down. Now, because of legal reasons with the National Association of Realtors, it's a little bit of a gray area on keeping those sub areas, and that probably had some influence on the MichRIC decision to remove those because really you can get into some legal gray areas when you start using those sub areas to define certain areas where people want to live and don't want to live. So that may have factored into why. Now, I'm sure the association, as they promote this further and let you know that these will be going away, they'll give you some additional explanation as to why they decided to go in and remove those specific sub areas. But really, they're very subjective boundaries. I think somebody made that comment as well. So I'm just going to make sure I've got everything saved before I leave. And now I'm going to show you how to use these two. And again, you're not limited to two. I could draw 100 shapes in my custom sub area folder here. But I've only done two for today's example. I'll click on Quick Search. And from here, um, I have my Quick Search templates. And again, I select if I'm doing residential land, I can use those shapes on any template. It doesn't have to be residential. It doesn't have to be land. Since it's an overlay I've created, a shape, I can use them on any template. And I'm going to come in here. Now, normally if I was searching for sub area, I would come down and say sub area of K, let's just come in here. Oops. K9, like downtown to crosstown. That's one that we drew. And I could start putting that in here and say, okay, now I've got those were all within K9. But remember, when this sub area field no longer exists after May 22nd, I'm just going to click on this X. My template will look like this. I'll have area, but I won't have sub area here. So what I'll do when I want to search on, for example, K6 or K9, one of the ones that we drew, at the very top of the template, right above status and property type, there is this search bar, and it's a location search. It says MLS number, address, or map overlay. Now, if you've drawn 30, 40, 50 overlays or shapes within your overlay, it'll only list about the first 10 or so. So you can start typing in what you're looking for. For example, so if I wanted K6, I could just start typing in K6 to narrow it down here. So just be aware if you've got a lot that you've created, it doesn't show all of them here. When I just click in that box, I have to start typing in. But since I've only got two, it shows both of those right now. To add one, double click on it. And now you'll see custom sub area K6. And it's just drawn that for me. If I wanted to add K9, I can add K9 here as well. I'll double click on that one. And so those are the two that I've drawn. And it's purple and blue, those colors that I selected, with the label that I've selected. And now I can continue with my search the same way I would normally. I can say property subtype, whatever that happens to be. If I'm looking for total number of bedrooms, minimum of 3 bedrooms or something like that, or square footage, I can continue with that search as normal. And when I'm saving the search, I'm just going to click, or we can start reviewing that, of course, on the list, the detail, the photos. None of that will change. When I do look at it on the map, I will see those shapes here as well that have been drawn. But really, nothing else changes. And so the process to save this search for myself, I just click on Save. All of my actions are at the top. Save in that center of my actions. Save the search to the very first option. And I'll just call this K6 and K9 example. Give it a description. If I'm saving it just for myself, I click on Save. And now I would find that under my menu, under my saved searches on my menu, it's toward the bottom of the search screen or the search section on the menu. And you'll see my most recently saved searches here. So it's right up at the top, K6 and K9. Now, I do have some contacts with existing searches. So I could do the same thing and save it for a contact, turn on that subscription to send them the automatic updates for the search. But the question came up with, if we have a contact out here who's already looking in a specific sub area. So maybe I have a contact, Megan, and she's got something out here. She's got a search that's looking at sub area K6. Whoops, I think it's called K06 in the actual sub area list. So if Megan is here looking at K6 in her search, and she already has a saved search that's looking at that and it's tied to that. When these are going away, how do I make sure her search is still going to be working and turning up the new listings that she wants to see? So let's go into contact management, and I'll just come down and we'll look at, I think I've got Megan in here. Now I don't know what search she actually has, but I'm just going to show you. So I'll click on Megan in my contacts. And now, since this is a training account, she probably doesn't have, oh, she does have one active search. Well, let's look at the search. Megan's residential search. So if this search was already looking at sub area of K6, I want to go in and make it look at the sub area overlay that I've drawn. So let's click on this search on Megan's record. I'm just on searches and subscriptions, the third tab over. Click on the search itself, and then I'll click on edit. And what would you like to do? I'd like to edit the search. From here, I have Megan's search. Oh, this one actually has a polygon. Looks like probably some training that was done in Grand Haven. I'm going to take that one off. We'll just say, for the sake of this example, this polygon was not here. And that when I came here, it said something like K6, whoops, or K9, one of those shapes that we've drawn. So if I came here and Megan's search is already looking at one of those sub areas, what I'm going to do is I could even take this off right now because I'm going to be replacing the sub area field with an overlay. I'm going to be replacing it with the map search. So I'm just going to add K6 here. So I've used that location bar. I've found the one or multiple. If she wanted K9 as well, I could add multiple in. I'm not limited to just one. I can add as many of those overlays as I'd like. And I can even just update this right now. And I can uncheck sub area. I don't even need to worry about that being checked now. So I'm modifying her current search. Let me take that. I'm going to lower the number of bathrooms and beds. Oh, square footage, water frontage. Yeah, so I didn't have a great example here for Megan's. I'm going to take that, I'm going to lower that square footage as well, just so we get a few more. So now I've got 11 in here. I just wanted to make sure. So whenever I'm modifying a search that's already existing from somebody, I can modify anything on the search. The purpose here, I can just remove sub area and add in these sub area overlays. But once I'm done modifying that search, I've no longer searching on this field because it's really not going to be used in a few weeks. But these shapes will be used. So now I'm going to click on save, and I can review the list, make sure it's turning up the same listings as before. Now this one won't be turning up the same listings as when we started the search because her search was quite different. But once I'm satisfied, I've got the search the way I want it. It's looking at those overlays now. I might just put in here using custom overlays. And Megan, remember we started this from her contact record. This search was already tied to a subscription. So I just need to save it. I'm just updating the search itself. So I'm just going to click on save. And I've just modified that search. So the subscription is always going off of the current search criteria. So let's just take a look at this. I'm going to return to contact management. And it'll start me here on Megan's searches and subscriptions. And this search, as I look at it here, inside custom sub area of K6 and K9. So it tells me I'm looking in those custom overlays, and then whatever else search criteria I have here. It tells me when this was created, when it was updated, and if I always, and then I see the subscription is tied to it. So the subscription, I don't have to update the subscription itself. I just needed to update the search. So for my contacts that I'm currently working with, identify your top prospects, see if they're looking at specific sub areas currently, And that gives you an idea of which ones are important to your clients. And you can go in and just create those in My Map overlays under the menu, that first step of this that we did, creating those. Once they're created, now I can just edit those searches for my top prospects. Now, I'm saying start with your top prospects, people you're currently actively working with. You know they're in contact with you. You know they're receiving updates. And you can tell that they're receiving and looking at listings and the updates by going to activity, seeing what listings they're viewing. It gives you 30 days. So identify those top prospects. Are they looking at sub areas currently? If so, create shapes for those sub areas. And again, I can do this. It takes me 5 minutes to draw the shape. It takes me about 2 minutes to go in to a contact and then update their search. Just click on the searches and subscriptions, update that search, and I'm just going to edit that search and point it toward the overlays that I've drawn. Maybe Megan only wants K6 and not K9. So I could always take one of those off of here. So it's no longer relying on the sub area field, since that's going to be removed. It's relying on the sub area overlay that I've drawn. And then I'm going to, if I do make any changes, just click on save. I started with somebody who already had an active subscription, so we're just modifying the search. And really, I just click save right down here. And that's all there is to it, to getting that all set for Megan. Now that's coming out here and saving searches for myself or my clients. Save a search for a custom hot sheet. So right now, if when I go to my hot sheet and I am using, looks like I've got area Jackson County here. So if I'm looking at specific sub areas, if I'm looking at K6 and K, oops, if I'm looking at those in my hot sheet, the hot sheet is just giving me that 24-hour update of new listing activity. What are the new listings in that specific location? What are the closed listings? What are the price changes? That's what the hot sheet allows me to do. And if I'm already using that sub area filter in my hot sheet, remember this is going to be going away. So what we'll want to do is on the hot sheet page itself, I went in to my hot sheet, and if it's not on your favorites, you can always go to your menu. It's the first option under daily functions. So menu, daily functions. And I'm going to scroll down because there's a custom hot sheets section. So this is where we're going to use a saved search. But let me show you how to set up the search first, because I need to have an existing saved search. So I am just going to click on Quick Search, and I'm going to save a search that I can use in a custom hot sheet. So from here, now if I wanted to only show residential type listings, I would start residential. But I might want it to include all property types. So I would change my search template and use number 7 down here, all property types. So now you'll see a lot of search active listings here, over 8,500. But I want this to be able to be used just for area K6 or K9 or both. I can always add multiple in here. So if I'm, maybe I'm looking at this, maybe I'm looking at N10, or I can create any overlays that are, like I said, important to me, important to my daily functions. And I want to know that market activity. So I'm going to use this with a hot sheet. Now, I'm using all property types. If I was saying, well, I don't really do commercial, I want residential land, multifamily, and residential lease, you can select on property type, hold down your control key, and when you're doing that, you can select or deselect individual items in that list. So I might just say I'm going to use residential land, multifamily, residential lease. I won't use commercial in this particular one. Set the custom sub areas that you want to include. In this case, I'm doing 2, but you could do more than 2. You could just do a single one. It's up to you what's important to you. And then this is the important thing. When I'm creating this for a hot sheet, I'm not going to worry about the status because my hot sheet filter is going to take care of the time frame and the statuses and that we're seeing. So I'm going to take status off, and you'll see this number jump from 36. It'll be a ton here. And I am actually going to just use 1 just to give us a few less in this particular example so it doesn't take too long for it to compile. So 3,984 listings, because it's not looking at status. It's not looking at active or pending or sold. It's taking any listing that's found within this shape. And so if there's over 1,000, you'll notice it's not mapping them, just because that would be a lot of dots in here. So it's looking at all the historical listings, but that's okay. What I want is just the property types and the location, in this case, sub area of K6, that I want to see included when I run my hot sheet. So I'm going to ignore status. I totally uncheck status. And I'm going to take everything else. I'm not going to put anything else in here either because I just want to see what's on the market. I'm not interested in specific bedrooms or bathrooms. And then I can, of course, review that, go to the list, go to the detail. But really all I'm doing is I'm going to save this search to use in my custom hot sheet. So I need to go to my actions at the top, click on save, first option, save search. And I'm just going to call this K6 custom hot sheet. So it'll be easy for me to pick out of a list. And I'm not saving it for a contact. I don't need updates from this. I can run the custom hot sheet whenever I'd like. So I'll just click on save. So it has saved this search. And if I were to go to menu and go to my saved searches, I see that in with my saved searches, that custom hot sheet. It's looking at the location, but not a status. I don't need to come to my saved searches. I was just illustrating that it was there. What I want to do is I want to create a custom hot sheet that is using this search. So there, remember, I can go to my menu. I've already got my hot sheet pinned to my favorites. So I'll just click on that. And it won't be the 24-hour hot sheet. I'll scroll down and it's going to be the custom hot sheet. Now, first I need to go to the settings before I run it. So I'll just click on custom hot sheet settings. So the very first part of this, it says history events. What do you want on this custom hot sheet? New listings, price changes, active, backup, contingent, sold, pending, expired. So I can come, if I click in that box, I see all of the potential options. If I wanted text changes. Now I always take text changes off because people love to go in and just change a couple of words and hope it hits the hot sheet. But I'm interested in actual status events that have changed. So new listings, price changes, things that have gone off market, things that are temporarily withdrawn, things that are back on market. So those are the history events. And then I can set a specific time frame. So when I click on this, I can say use a date range or use a specific time frame. And I can come in here. You'll see the last time I ran this, it's going. Now I can do this up to 90 days back here. But what I'm going to do is just say, hey, let's run this 1 day back, or excuse me, up to 45 days back. But I just want to run this. We'll do this for 3 days right now. Now, when I rerun it, a note here. When I first set this up, I can say up to 45 days back, and I'll do 3 for this example. But if I want to run it again, by default, it goes and pulls activity since the last time it was run. So up to 72 hours. So I can just check this once a day or every other day, and I don't have to come back in and change the time period. It just pulls new information in the future from the last time I ran it. And then here, search type. I want to use a saved search. And now when I have saved searches selected right here, I have my saved searches that are going to be available. K6 custom hot sheet. That's the one I wanted to use. So it will look 3 days back. And that's why we're not selecting the status in the search itself, because the hot sheet, the custom hot sheet, says these are the changes we want to see on the hot sheet. This is the time period. So the hot sheet is really just to use that overlay. Uh, so it's looking in that specific location. And then I'll click Run the Saved Search Hot Sheet. Click on that. I just work that screen top down, and then I'm going to see new listings, closed listings. Now I'm looking in a pretty specific location, pended listings. So uh, I won't see a ton of activity. You could, of course, include more. Now, you don't have to filter your hot sheets this way, but this is just showing you if you already use those sub areas on your hot sheets, this is how you create a search and use it with that. And you'll see at the very top of the screen, it's telling me it's going back 3 days. So it's kind of telling me hot sheet for those past 3 days. It's going back to the 25th. Today's the 28th. And when I go back and I want to run this again, maybe tomorrow morning, I just want to see that activity, anything new since yesterday. Because that's the beauty of a hot sheet. It allows you to keep up with the most recent activity in those locations that you're currently looking at. So I go back to my hot sheet. I just clicked on hot sheet. I'll scroll down, and the custom hot sheet, I don't have to go into the settings again. It's already pointed to that search. It's telling me it's going to show activity since the last time it was run, and it tells me the last time it was run. So if I go in and run this right now, it's going to pull 0 listings, unless in the past 2 minutes there's been somebody who's changed a listing in that specific location. But I can click Run Custom Hot Sheet, and it's going to pull 0 listings because it's pulling since the last time you ran that hot sheet. So that's why I said this is something that you would do daily or every other day. Is just come here. Now, if I say, oh, I want to go back and look at today's, how do I get back into that time frame? Just back in the settings, I can always come back here and say, let's use relative days back, and let's go back the past 5 days. So I can always reset that here if I would like, but really there's no need. Once you set that, you can just click it every other day or whenever you're looking at the hot sheet, and it just pulls the activity since the last run. But if you do need to pull it up again for something that we just saw, maybe 3 days like we ran initially, um, using the saved search, it's already pointed to this. So I just change the time period, and then I can rerun that, of course. But the next time I go into my hot sheet and go to custom hot sheet, you'll notice it tells me the last time it was run, and it will pull the activity since then. So that's using this in that custom hot sheet. I am going to come back here and I'm going to show one final thing, and that's using that overlay in the market summary statistics. This is something that I'm going to go just kind of back out here. You can do this now. A lot of people don't realize that this market summary statistics, like if you're looking at a specific sub area and you want to say, how many listings have been added in this sub area in the past year? How many were sold in the past year? What was the average sale price? Under my menu, I'll scroll down to the statistics section, and there's a market summary right here. So it's right under my production, which would be pulling my sales, but market summary. And the default, it's looking at the entire MLS. If you've never been here before, now it is telling me, I probably ran this a year or two ago, looking at a specific zip code. But I want this to look for listing market information for one of those overlays that I just drew. So to point it at a specific overlay, I'll click on Customize and select New Location. And then I have a filter at the top. And now I could type in, I could do this by zip code, I could type in cities, But I can also come in and use the custom overlays that I've drawn. Now you can only look at one location at a time in the market summary. So I'm just going to do K6. I can't add K6 and K9 like I would on a search. I could only add one at a time. Report date, I can run this through the last completed month. So it's saying through February of 2023. In a few days, I'd be able to run this for March as well. MLS, uh, which since you data share with other MLSs, I would suggest using MichRIC here. Property type, we'll just look at residential. And then I'm going to click search. So it'll apply that. Now it will take a few minutes since I am going and looking at um, a specific overlay that I've created. It has to go in for the past year and look at the map location of all of those listings. Does that fit within my overlay? But now I see number of listings, active listings, new listings, sold listings. If I just wanted to see active listings or new listings, you can click on these and just look at new listings. And I can see when listings were added, most frequently see active listings, total active listings, compare that with sold listings here. Listing prices, so I can see what the listing prices have done in that specific K6 for residential that I'm looking at. If I'm looking at any of these, I see absorption rate. And I say, well, what is absorption rate? How is absorption rate calculated? Each of these graphs has a help button next to it. You can click on that. It tells you how many what that is. Absorption rate is months of inventory. So if nothing were to change right now at that current rate, how long does that take to sell out? So that's that absorption rate. And then it tells you what it's doing to calculate that. So it's a snapshot of listings for the absorption rate. It's taking those active listings on the 15th of the month, not an average through the month. So it gives you exactly how those are being calculated. Um, and I can see absorption rate, sale to list price ratio, great information on the market for, in this case, just that overlay that I've done in K6. And then underneath that, it gives me, I can always hover over these. I forgot to point that out. Um, as I'm looking at these, if I hover over any of those points, it tells me active listings, November 22nd, 14 active listings. So I could go in and find that same for new listings or sold listings. Well, it looks like those coincide right there. New listings and sold, both 3. Interesting. So you can do that. I can see the breakdown underneath here. It'll give me February, the last closed month, compared to the last completed month 1 year ago. And it will also do year to date, 2023 compared to last year. So I can see what the change has been year over year here. Well, not year, just compared to last year. Sold listings, if I'm looking and saying in this particular price range, where are most things selling? So I can see these price range breaks here, 200 to 249 to 180 to 199, 1, compare 2023 to 2022, active listings, new listings. So great information. This can be emailed. So if I'm putting together a CMA presentation or a presentation to get somebody and I'm doing a CMA, I could always put this in as well just to give additional market information. So just wanted to put this in here as one other use since you've created those custom overlays, some other uses for them besides just the hot sheet. You can also get that market information. How many new listings were added in that location over the past year? What was the average sale price? What's the absorption rate? What's the sale to list price ratio? So great information. And again, this was the market summary report. I went to my menu. I scrolled down to statistics and it was market summary right under my production. So that's where I went. And you'll notice when I come here, it remembers what I searched on last time. So if I want to look and look in K9, I just click on customize, new location, and do the same thing, K9. because remember, it only looks at one location at a time in this particular statistics report. And then it takes just a few minutes for that to load, and now I can see K9. If you do look at multiple locations, you can see under Customize previous locations. I can put a star next to any of those. You'll see the star, I'll click on that. I'll click on this, and that gets moved to your favorites. So if I go to Customize, I have a favorite location out here. So you can always come here and run for your favorite locations here as well. So anytime you search, if you're going to do it again in the future, just mark it as a favorite. And when you go to Customize, you can see it under your favorite locations. Change the date to the last completed month, and you'll be ready to go. Now with that, I am going to take one last look to see if we've got any additional questions. Uh, One thing I want to point out here, just from looking at a few of the comments, is right now when you go in and create a search and you're using sub area, if I'm looking outside of the MichRIC MLS, for example, maybe I'm looking in MiRealSource, uh, you'll notice that sub area goes off the template because it's not a field that's in common. It's used in MichRIC, but it's not used in MiRealSource when I'm coming in here, or maybe real comp. So when I come here, you'll also notice that there's no sub area. So one of the advantages of using this is going to be that when I come here, I'm just going to start over brand new again. And I want to say I don't want to just look in MichRIC because I know when I come in here that real comp may have some things listed here as well. So I could select all of the data shares or the data shares that I want. And even if that data share MLS does not use that sub area, I can still use my map overlays now. So I don't have to worry about the source if there's somebody outside the MLS, but it's located within that shape that I'm about to put on here. I'll use K6 again. Now this allows me to do that actual data share MLS searching of sub areas. Doesn't matter which data source we're using, which other MLS we're sharing data with, even if they don't use sub area. Now I'm going to be sure I can include them in the search, and I can come in and make sure that we're getting all of the listings that are in here. It doesn't matter the source of the listing. If the listing falls within that shape that I've drawn, then it's going to be in here regardless of that source. So one thing I can do when I go in and, for example, we looked at Megan's search. And Megan's, I think, was just looking in MichRIC. So I'm just going to come back down to Megan. And I'm going to go to her search. Let's click on it and click on Edit. Now, I showed you how to edit the search and use that overlay. But now I can say, I'm just going to select all of the data shares. So if there's somebody out there that belongs to another MLS, but they've got a listing that falls within my shape, now I just click on Save at the top. And now her search is pulling in listings from all of the data shares. So again, not limited to just looking in MichRIC for sub areas, because this is a custom shape that I've drawn. And that is going to then pull in listings from all of the data share MLSs that I select. So I've resaved this search to include all of those MLSs. All right, I'm going to come back out here. The very last thing that I'll show is if you have gone into the very first place we began with my map overlays under preferences, I can take this after I've got this set. Maybe I've got 36 overlays that I've drawn, or maybe somebody else in my office has done that. You're able to select any of these overlay folders that you've drawn, and I can give that to somebody. Now, it has to be somebody within your office. Transferring across offices does not work. So somebody within your office here, I can give that. And I don't know that I've got any other, yeah, probably nobody that will appear in list. Don't think I've got, since this is a trading account, I don't have other members within my office, but I would be able to go in and search and give that to somebody within your office. I had mentioned that at the beginning, but I forgot to show you that. And it's very easy to give that to somebody once they're already created under your map overlays. Right when you start on map overlays, once you've got something created, that's where I can select. I can have multiple overlay folders out here as well, but I just select the one I want to share and I can give that to somebody. And that means when they go to their map overlays, they would see the one that I gave them. When they go to quick search, they'll be able to use all of those shapes within the folder that I shared with them. So just wanted to point that out as well. Now I want to thank everybody for attending today. This was recorded. We'll get that video processed and get it up and hosted for you and send you the link so you can review at your convenience. We'll send that out probably late this afternoon. Thank you for attending and have a great rest of your day.